God, you're gonna love it.
Hey folks, welcome to the AI Chicks, where we're providing you cool conversations about AI for all. With each episode bringing you a different topic on how AI impacts your daily life. I'm your host, Aisha Corpus Wynn, always bringing those fun, unique perspectives on tech. And I got my AI Chick co-host here.
Hi guys, I'm Lana Hout, and I'm bringing the curls, the charisma, and that entrepreneurial energy.
Yes, she is, folks, as always. And today, what are we getting into, Lana?
AI and action movies.
Oh, yes. We love action. We love movies.
So we need to talk about AI and action movies.
Exactly. And so we always like to get AI's take on a topic. And so who are we hearing from today?
So today we're going to be hearing from Gemini. But to make things interesting, I asked Gemini to give us an entertaining take on AI and action movies.
All right, well, let's see what this entertaining take is going to be.
According to Gemini, buckle up action aficionados. Forget popcorn. AI is taking action movies to the next level. These days, it's not just about who throws the most punches. AI has infiltrated the scene, wielding its analytical power to craft trailers that explode with action. Imagine a digital mastermind scanning every fight scene, every death-defying stunt, to pinpoint the purest cinematic adrenaline. Then, with lightning speed, it assembles a trailer guaranteed to get your heart racing faster than a runaway jetpack. But the influence doesn't stop there. AI is also infiltrating special effects, conjuring up mind-blowing CGI and fight sequences so real, you'll swear you can feel the hero dodging bullets. So next time you watch a pulse-pounding action flick, remember, AI might be the secret weapon making those on-screen battles even more epic.
All right, well, that was very entertaining.
Yeah, grab your popcorn.
Yeah, definitely sounding like its own little trailer. And we're really excited to have Dylan Goss join us next. He is a aerial cinematographer, you guys. So we're going to get into movies, we're going to get into AI, and we're going to get into some aerial and drones for sure.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SBO. Terms and conditions apply.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Welcome, Dylan, to the AI Chicks.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we wanted you to start a little bit by telling our listeners about yourself and your background.
Okay, I work in film production. I'm a director of photography who specializes in aerials. That's usually flying around in a helicopter or an airplane on a large feature film.
That just sounds like the coolest job ever.
I know. I just automatically think of all of those action movies where they're up in the air and you're your own like superhero. That's like a superhero move.
The highlights reel is amazing, and then there's after everybody's left and you're in the hangar and then it's, cold and you're turning a wrench or something.
I have a really quick question. When you tell people what you do, all guys must think you have the coolest job ever.
I feel like everybody used to always ask me if I hung out of the helicopter, right? The guy on the skids,
Honestly, I have to be completely transparent. That's what I was thinking about when you were talking about being in a helicopter. I'm like, so he's like hanging out the helicopter.
When anybody says like, oh, I'm a pilot or I fly helicopters, they think that's cool. And then you have like the other layer to it where then you're actually doing action movies and filming and shooting cameras and all of that in a helicopter. That just seems like a double whammy.
It's nice. We do come in and it's like, hey, the helicopter's here. That's kind of exciting. And you're there for a reason to shoot something that hopefully is, a big splash. They're putting all their money into this moment. So I'm pretty fortunate.
So you heard a little bit about what AI had to say about AI in action films.
My take was that AI is pretty, it doesn't have a lack of self-confidence. AI. It was very, salesy, all the great things it's going to do.
In all fairness, we asked it for a more entertaining take. So that was Gemini's entertaining take.
I mean, to give everybody context a little bit, I'm not going to say I'm like the pessimist guy showing up here, or I'm a little older and I have this certain take on things. I want to talk about what I see impacting the business right now and what I can imagine is going to be happening. And also just some more existential questions I have about the place for AI in this. I mean, I made notes and everything. Usually I do these and it's about the cameras and stuff like that, right? I'm not an AI expert. You know, I can tell you in the seat of my pants, you know, how it's affected my job on a day-to-day basis.
And that's exactly why we wanted you on the podcast, Dylan, because not everything needs to be from an expert AI tech lens, because now we're all seeing that this is just impacting everybody's lives, everybody's careers on a daily basis. And that's exactly why we wanted to get into this conversation with you.
AI in action film, I was kind of excited. I was like, we're seeing a lot with generative AI, creating these images and these videos that are coming out. And I thought, okay, well, from an independent filmmaker standpoint, this is kind of like an opportunity, right? Because if they had an idea for an action film, they would have to go raise money or get fundraising, someone to finance their film. But with AI, they're able to at least come up with kind of like a sample of what their movie or their idea would be. You could use generative AI to show you what the feel would be, or at least get an essence of it. And then it kind of got me thinking a little bit also about this idea of dynamic content customization. What happens from a viewer standpoint? There's a lot of times where sometimes there's scenes in films that maybe are not appropriate for certain viewers' tastes. It's like too violent or too aggressive for them. And then they could kind of opt different scenarios. This is a lighter version of the same film.
Yeah, because AI allows you to choose your own adventure kind of thing when you're coming up with scenes.
I mean, the challenge I have with all this is that when I look at like where the rubber hits the ground, like I work in a business where, you know, I lose my job every week by definition. Even on a successful job, you know, I don't, what's next? You know, what's on your calendar?
Oh, yeah,
right?
that makes sense. Yeah.
Right, like it's a project by project basis is what you mean.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is that for me, I'm very much, okay, what does this mean about my job on Tuesday? Like, what does this mean now? Because it's going to be something coming down the road, right? I'm a bit of a sci-fi geek and read some futurist stuff. And I've been for a long time a fan of Ray Kurzweil. And he talks about the singularity, right? And about all these big events that are coming down the pipe. And the predictions are just not that far down the road. You know, they're talking about 20 years, you know, merging with AI, right? I mean, so it's hard for me to get scope on this conversation, because if you want to take it out far enough and talk about people can generate their own adventures and do these things, I'm sure. I mean, there'll be absolutely no need, I would imagine, to be capturing things with real cameras. I mean, there's just all these kind of conversations you can have if you push the timeline
further
forward.
out. Yeah.
Today, what I see personally, and I don't want to be the grump about it, but I've played around with Stable Diffusion. I've messed with prompts. I've done some video work. I was curious, like, how achievable that was, and I wasn't that happy with the results. I was like, okay, I mean,
that's happening to a lot of us, especially in the industry. Some of the outputs aren't that strong yet.
9 fingers and like hallucinations.
Exactly, and how they handle letters and words. But over time, I am seeing these AI tools progress faster. Usually, you know, when we experience a new iPhone or any type of new tech product, it takes a while. You know, you're waiting a few years before the next version's coming out. What's interesting with some of these Gen AI tools is that the next 2.0 version is coming out months later, and then the output of it is like drastically better. So I think that's the part for me that makes all of this very, very interesting. But you're right. Right now, it's not that strong, but we always would like to take into consideration here the present and what's happening now, and then also giving people some insight on how it can be impactful in a year or two. And then there's the 20-year version that you're talking about.
You're an expert in your field. So we always talk about how powerful that is when someone has the experience and then they're using a tool. Because if you're a novice and you're using the tool, yeah, it's giving you some output. But if you're an expert in the field and you start incorporating AI, is that just going to make you more efficient, faster? But because you have your experience,
because you have your skills, does it make you better?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a little curious when the tool is going to be something that I can lever that's going to be built for my unique case. I mean, I have some experience. It's not AI, using Unreal Engine to do previs. On Dune, they would scan an actual set. We're not going to move these mountains that have been there for a million years. And we have to shoot around them and know where the sun's going to be and how we're going to do that scene, right? So people go out and LiDAR that set. We'd have that put into a computer and then be able to walk through some of the scenes with, you know, VR goggles or just on a monitor, looking at where the sun's going to be at a certain time, and just to be most efficient when we shoot that day. So to me, there's no AI involved in that. I'm not asking any magical questions. It's just a tool. It's technology, right? Scanning and rendering. And on that level, like, the movie business seems to have all this sort of like bleeding edge use cases, right? I'm a little less certain about what the actual AI uses are right now today. You know, when I went and I asked AI last night.
Yes. What did you ask AI and what did it say?
I asked what it could do for me when I'm making a movie. These are the ones that I thought were interesting. Script breakdowns. I get a script. I'm going to work on a movie for one day. So they give you a 120-page script, but you know, you're dealing with your whole life and you're flying to some foreign country to show up jet lag. For me, it's like command find. I'm in Word searching for like flying helicopter, you know, like, so sure. Could a tool break down that and tell me, you know, where it thinks that there's use for aerials in there? And would I learn to trust that? Like, I could see that happening right now. That's interesting. I've never done that.
Well, maybe this is an idea for your next movie project.
The next script Dylan's getting.
So I want to go to some that I'm a little less excited about. I mean, scheduling, maybe. Previs. The more money you spend on a sequence, like cars are crashing, it's a one-off, the sun's setting, any of these, you know, limited events, you're going to benefit from pre-visualization. It's pretty rare that I will work on something that does not have some sort of previs component, right?
Yeah.
So they're handing me a cartoon, it's an animatic, it's all been 3D rendered, and it's literally got every shot they want in the movie, and on it is a lot of technical information. This is a 35 millimeter lens, this is from this angle. I've spent most of my career since previs has existed cursing about it on a level. They've gotten better at making it. You know, it's been 10 years we're dealing with this tool probably. But I worked on a movie called San Andreas, and we had this huge sequence downtown Los Angeles with The Rock, right, where there's an earthquake. And they had permissions to close down 36 blocks in downtown LA and do this huge bit of work. And I'm thinking we're going to be there for, you know, a month on the weekends. So 4 weekends maybe. And they come back and they're like, oh, no, we have to do this in 2 weekends. So it was really important that we understood exactly where every shot was. And our idea was to go back and not only look at the previs, but have these really assembled in the real world where we could be calling out on the radios to the pilots, you know, we're going to do shot, you know, 2B, and everybody knows where they need to be.
And everyone
we do
sinks in and does it.
And we're just banging it out, a couple takes, right? And that's what we did in the end. But the process of taking the previs and trying to understand what the intention was in the shots was really complicated. And this happens still now. There's one famous shot in there. We built a model, like an old school cardboard model on a table. We would go through and kind of like deconstruct where these shots were. So we said, look, I can't figure out some of these shots. Can you show me like where that camera is supposed to be? Because we can't find it. You know, we're looking and it's like, I don't see that building from this angle. And one of the shots that they loved was a 6,000 millimeter lens going 100 miles an hour from 15 miles away. Just ludicrous stuff. You don't do that. That's not a shot. Like, you can't fly a lens that fast, that far away. But, you know, it was someone at a desk making this thing, right, and putting it together. So to me, we have enough problems with previs being accurate that I'd be really curious to see like how the AI tools that we're talking about would do previs.
Got it. Yeah.
I tried doing storyboards last night and have it generate some images for me, and they were pretty lacking. So that could be me being a novice at it.
No, it's not you being a novice at it, because we're not novice at it. And again, there's certain platforms that their outputs aren't as strong as others.
The only thing that I will say is what I've realized in just working with different Gen AI tools is that your prompting has to be very specific.
Yeah.
And I think as the tool improves, what I would imagine is that the prompt will not need to be as perfectly worded to get you what you want. But even with a perfectly worded prompt, it's still in development.
There's two things I'd love to talk about. One is there are some uses that I do see. Sports broadcasting, for instance, you can capture this huge image of the field. They do this now where there's virtual cameras where they're capturing sort of an array of the field, and there's not a specific, you know, single shot. There aren't 15 cameras out there. They're scanning the whole thing and then creating virtual views live and cutting to that. And they don't have as many cameramen for lower tier sports, right? I see that. Reality TV or unscripted, I can imagine maybe that, right? My wife loves this stuff. She also we have a TV that she watches that's in our bedroom that's not set up. Like, it drives me wacky. Like, the color's wrong and it doesn't, like, I'm just like dying every slow breath, like, you know, wanting to get into the menus and like change the color temperature, you know,
That's
stuff.
so funny.
Honey, do you know who you married? Like, what is going on with this television?
But she's giving me the idea that there's a different viewer who these tools are going to be quicker to making content for. What I'm trying to point out is, like, I'm working in this 0.001 percentile when I'm lucky. You know, a lot of the stuff we turn out, it's a bunch of superheroes doing silly stuff. Might not be that great, but been lucky enough to work on Greg Fraser's Dune that won an Oscar, and that level of realism that they strive for. And the things that we do are about capturing real interactive elements in the desert. We never shoot empty frames when there's spacecraft. We shoot another vehicle, like a helicopter that we'll shoot that's playing in, that's a dummy for a spaceship. And we film that so they can see how that interacts with the light, how the sand blows.
Yeah.
Like, they're striving so much to pick up any essence of real. I don't see them just going in there going, hey, we're going to generate this.
That's a very good point and interesting that you're bringing up, because that comes to my take. Lana, you were really talking about more of the independent filmmaker experience. For me, my day job is I'm an executive producer for film, TV, and podcasts. And so with my experience there and really thinking about the industry, where is the happy medium for Gen AI with real cinematic footage? Because there is that fear and myth right now that Gen AI is going to be making all movies and doing everything and taking away all the actors and everything's going to be generative AI. And I think that there is a happy medium here with using real cinematic footage, especially when you're talking about action films and big blockbuster movie scenes, and using AI with CGI, with the previs, basically having AI improve the tech that you guys are already using and finding ways to bring Gen AI into that dynamic. I don't know what that happy medium is, but my top 5 movie genres that I think could be impacted the most with AI, frankly, animation and action movies are really up there in that top 5, but it's purely because there's a lot of special effects. There's a lot of extra elements outside of just the actors and tangible, props and items. There could be the benefits of Gen AI playing and dancing with the real movements and the real life scenes. But I'm curious, with your experience, where do you think is the happy medium of how much we're implementing Gen AI background, special effects, video and footage from Gen AI into what the cinematographers, the videographers, what you guys are actually capturing?
I mean, I think it's a really short leash right now and practical, like just today, not this is going to happen. Of course, these things are going to happen. What's happening today?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Almost nothing. I mean, I can't find, look, I don't work you see the 700 names come up doing visual effects that are, half these guys working, all of them on computer systems, a lot of them using custom software. There's obviously machine learning in that process, right? Something that hit me practically on a movie. So Nuke is a piece of software that a lot of the visual effects guys will have on their workstation. It's a high-end professional, $10,000 license or whatever, right? But half of these shots are coming out of Nuke. Nuke has all these plugins. One of the plugins for Nuke is called Copycat. And Copycat is a machine learning tool where you basically train it on source material and then it tries to copy that source material. So you give it a truth, like in my world, what it would be. We did this movie last year and there was a lot of flying aircraft and we needed to put cameras on the planes. So we were shooting it from other platforms, like from helicopters and jets, but we want to have cameras mounted to the planes, inside the planes, right? The legality of doing that, if the camera's not super small and super light, if it's not a GoPro, it's a whole approval process because you're trying to put this very heavy thing.
Extra weight on the plane. Yeah.
It could make the plane crash. If it fell off, where's it going to go and what's going to happen, right? So that was not an option. And we were looking at what we could do with a small camera. We might be able to use that for a quick little burst or something. And I spoke with someone who I really trust in visual effects, who's, the type of person who really, really breaks down the work that we do on things that I think would pass 99% of the public. These are like two nerds talking about these lenses. And that same person who I trust is saying, look, you should look into this thing with Copycat because if you train it, you basically take the camera that you're going to be forced using, which would be the GoPro, and then you take the Sony Venice 2 with the amazing Panavision lens, and you mount those things next to each other and you point them at exactly the same thing and you shoot, right? You drive them down the street. Maybe this is aerial, so can you put those on a helicopter and fly around for a minute? You take a fairly small amount of footage.
And you train Copycat on that?
You train Copycat.
Okay.
And then Copycat can then take GoPro footage and make it look like the Venice. If this had come up, me finding it on YouTube or something, I'd be more skeptical because I know this person's profession. I worked with him on Black Panther, the last Wakanda movie.
He's vetted it for you.
Yeah. And he's like, no, this works. It works. It's pretty amazing. And you might want to think about it. And that was a bit of wow, I'm working in a space, for me professionally, I get hired because they want this shot and they don't care that it takes a drone, a robot, they just do it.
Yeah.
And you don't bend the creative. The whole thing about independent film is the lack of money, it inspires creativity. You have to come up with ways to get it done. But here's what I don't get about AI, and I'm just going to pivot really quickly because it's in that same world of smaller projects, right? Is you're democratizing these tools, right? You're giving access. To me, it reminds me as an old dinosaur dude, that you could have a word processor and publish your own little newsletter. I remember I'm old enough where it would be if you want to make something, you had to get a typewriter and a Xerox machine. And now you can just self-publishing was like a big thing, right? Or the earliest websites on like MySpace or like, blogs. So I see this thing that people are alluding to, and it's that, anybody can create this stuff. It's no longer the studios that have to be able to make a movie.
Yeah, they feel like they're removing the gatekeeping, yeah.
The part I don't quite get about that conversation, hear me out, is that watching the Apple ads, the gatekeeping is a $1,000 phone, and quite frankly, you don't even need that when you get a Pixel for half that price that's got a great camera in it. You can do nonlinear editing with free tools. I feel like anybody can already make a movie. Like
basically,
anybody.
yes.
And when I got into the film business, the problem was, where are you going to get some film? Who's going to lend you a film camera? Those are worth a lot of money, and you have to have insurance for it because they're expensive.
Now you have your phones, and most people can film any kind of content.
Right. And so what you're going to need is somebody to do the costuming, somebody to maybe try and help light it, and people play these roles. Film has always been a collaborative process. I'm afraid, whatever AI can do in making 12-fingered people in weird and it's a guy alone making that. So I'm wondering who that's enabling, and who's the person's voice who's just totally left out of the process of going and making a movie on the weekend with your iPhone, because I think that's pretty darn accessible to at least to the Western world.
But that's why I think AI, at least my perspective, is AI is just a tool. Even if there is movies that are generated with AI, no matter how good I think an AI generated film could be, I still think there's a place for that and a place for traditional filmmaking. And I think that they all bring different elements that make you feel something different. For me, what's exciting was when you were bringing up the copycat example about being able to use the tools that you have, but to get the result that you want. I don't really think it's necessarily going to replace. I think it might modify, but I think in general with technology and filmmaking is based off of technological innovation, right?
Yeah,
the first camera that ever came out is not the current camera that you're talking about.
No, but that was state of the art, right?
Yeah, that was state of the art.
And it's always been chasing technology.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's exciting to just see where it's going to go. But I still think the people and the talent and the expertise need to be part of that process.
And that goes back to what I was saying in my take. I really feel like there's a dance here with the Gen AI tools as well as what we normally do in our industry, and finding that happy medium. Because yes, the copycat is a great example of something that is just enhancing what you're already working on versus replacing. Yes, there will be these independent filmmakers that will be able to get that vision that they've been sitting on in their mind and getting that out there. However, what you put in is what you get out. So I don't know how that quality would be, and I don't know if that quality will be enough to win an Oscar
or translate to success.
But I'm a skeptic about that. There's obviously some brilliant 15-year-old boy or girl in the room who maybe is going to come up with this amazing thing. But I still feel like you want that kid in this case and their band of buddies to make that movie together.
In those unique cases when someone needs to be solo dolo, if you will, and generate a whole entire action movie by themselves with Sora, that is possible. But I think that there's going to be a whole new category that is those types of films,
like AI film.
That's going to be a whole different category. But there is the world in which you can have a dance between these improved AI features with what you're already doing for the professional studios and professional filmmakers, but then also for the independent filmmakers that are doing it with their buddies. They're coexisting.
I think so.
They're categories.
In different fields.
Till the singularity, and then it's all over.
Well, before we wrap up and say bye, I want to make sure that we also touch on some other key conversations that keep coming up in our industry regarding, filmmaking, AI, is just the ethical side of it. You mentioned putting in a script into an AI tool. There's been some dynamics around what are they doing with that data? And then also more recently, a lot of AI companies, such like an OpenAI, they're allowing people to license their footage to their AI companies and then use that footage to train off of. So there's this other whole business model of, if you have this amazing footage, say you have hundreds of thousands of hours of aerial footage, you could technically sell that to an AI company or license it to an AI company for them to train their tools off of. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on the ethical and privacy dynamics of AI in our industry, because so many people are weary about sharing their script, sharing their cuts. The studios spend a lot of time and money to make sure that things don't get leaked.
And it's confidential.
Yeah, and it's confidential. So I would love to hear your thoughts on just the ethical and privacy dynamics around all this.
If you're going to train a model on this existing footage, there's a conversation I've seen about biases. You know, you're training large language models and they turn out that they're racist because that's what's out in the world, you know, and it's, oh my God, this computer has these views and it's just learning from us, right? Something about that connects with me with the idea of, you know, you're going to train it on this footage, but it's like by and large, you know, 90% of the time I'm there to just get a shot or do a thing. And there's a house and it's the afternoon and there's a car on a road. And then there's the movies where I feel like somebody was really interested in letting the camera that I'm using do something really unique. Sicario was all this footage where we just lingered out in the desert and did all these things that were not expected, right? But it's like, where would that have been generated from? You know, like, because I'm giving you a bunch of stuff that'd be cars driving down the road, sunsets, a shot of Manhattan. You know, it's like that's 90% of my job, to be honest, right? You do it. That's what I get hired to do. What I've already done. But then there's that unique thing. I mean, it's almost like we're talking about action movies a lot in this, and I didn't really address it. But to me, I felt like it was maybe the Fast and Furious movies. There was something where visual effects became a big part of car stunts.
Yes,
they weren't like that before, and all of a sudden it was like their cars were going to the moon. I think in one of those movies, right?
Yeah. Now every car chase has fire and
they have to jump a bridge and it's like all of these tricks and they do like a 360 in the air
and then land on a ship in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
Hopefully you use restraint, but what I'm looking at is like, oh, maybe you could say as a producer, like we did that safer, we did less takes of it, we didn't really have to blow that car up. The computer was the blow up part and the guy got out of it before it blew up, you know, or whatever, you know, so that's better. French Connection, the best car chase. If you talk to anybody who's a movie aficionado who loves car chases, there's no doubt. I mean, it's almost like inarguable is the best car chase ever. It's French Connection with, you know, William Friedkin shot it in 1971. There's no special effects in that, you know, and I don't know. I just feel like I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried. I think the human element is what movies are. Look, AI is going to change the entire world, and it's mind-bending what's coming. And I look at certain jobs that also, it's like, you know, how does my bookkeeper even still have a job today? They're taking things off paper and typing them, putting them in category. Like that just feels like an entire job. And it's crazy because there's, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, 1 million people that do that in the country. I mean, we're in a pretty weird little esoteric field, you know, and even I did a thing. I asked for Gemini to make a shooting schedule for me and I gave it a bunch of information and it got all kinds of stuff wrong and it's fine, you know, but my point is like, is it even worth correcting that model for like, there's 4 people who do what I do. I mean, on a big movie, you're hiring me or maybe 2 other guys in the US and there's a couple guys in Europe. So there's like half a dozen of us in the world left who fly around helicopters and do this. Is it even worth training a computer to deal with? You know, I just feel like the movies I meet people all the time who the guy who, you know, creates those special contact lenses that goes in their eyes, or this guy does visual effects, but his specialty is modeling fire rounds, you know, because the gun has to be perfect. And just the crazy bits of specialized knowledge and the way that people can light so unusually, you know, the guys who are winning these Oscars that I'm lucky enough to work for a lot of them that, you know, they're filming things that in a way that you don't see all the time. So there's no way to train it on run-of-the-mill infomercials and get a miracle.
And I think you're also really hitting on the diversity. It's like depth and breadth, right? Because it's like if you gave an AI model a bunch of downtown LA and there's cars and it's during the day, then whatever it generated would be downtown LA with cars in the middle of the day versus it was like Texas, if it was New York, if it was different times of the day, if it was different cars, rural versus urban settings. You have to give it a lot of different information for it to be able to pull things. And I still don't think you're going to necessarily get what you're talking about when you were saying about those very specific shots where you're really letting your creativity go wild. It's going to be based off of the data that it got. And yes, maybe it might hallucinate and come up with some things, but will it be wonky? We don't know. So I really appreciate, Dylan, you know, you taking the time to talk to us because I feel like you're giving a lot of our listeners, while we're excited about technology and innovation and there's some great things that come with it, there's some cons too. And I think the human element is always what we come back to, the creativity and the spirit. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And
we both pointed at each other at the same time.
Do you know what this means?
Yes.
Party time.
Yes.
Game time.
All right. Usually we get to this in the beginning.
I know, we
but
didn't.
we were so hot and ready to talk to Dylan about.
This was such an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it was. We got right into it.
I'm like, what's happening?
We haven't played our game yet.
Yes.
And before you leave, we have to induct you into the AI Chick Squad.
Yes.
With a nickname.
Yes.
Oh.
So you get a nickname.
Boy.
Now, because Dylan, you know, this is our first time meeting you. If you have any nicknames you would like to tell us about.
Yeah, do you have like an old school nickname you've been using forever that we should just know about?
He's like, not that I would admit on this show.
That. Yeah.
I had one.
Okay.
I was just like super Dylan.
Oh.
Because you
Too clean.
are.
Oh, no. Why? I like that for you.
Well, I've been in the business and I romanticize about us traveling around and like, you know, the people used to make Westerns and stuff. You know, like I love The Big Lebowski and I'd rather be more of like the dude.
Oh, the dude.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm not mad at
Yeah,
the dude.
I'm not throwing out my suggestion because if he wants the dude, he's really not going to like
Well,
what
come
I'm
on,
doing.
let's just like for a chuckle here.
Yeah, well, my nickname I was going to throw is completely opposite from the dude.
What is it?
I was going to call it Gossy.
Gossy.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, he deals with like the glossy action movies, the glossy scenes
Yes.
and all that. And then his last name is Goss.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, maybe it's Glossy and Goss. And I was like, Gossy. But that is completely
Very different from what
from the dude.
So those
I
are
like
your
Gossy.
options.
I'm going to go.
really?
I'm-
You're going to
yeah.
go with Gossy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it.
Oh,
Let's
all
do it.
right. See?
All right.
Well, Gossy, thanks for coming to the AI Chicks. Honestly,
Thank
this
you.
has been such an interesting conversation.
been
Thank
cool.
you for letting us into your world.
Yeah, you've been keeping it real.
Yes.
For sure. And I love that you've been keeping the conversation for this topic really present about what's applicable now.
Yes.
And I think that there's a lot of great takeaway and a lot of great just myth busting and misconceptions
Yes.
that we were able to, you know, comb our way through for our listeners. So thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a good time, a good chat with us.
It's amazing. Thank you. I'm a big fan now. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dylan Gossy, for joining us. Make sure you guys listen to our podcast on any other platforms that you get your podcast and follow us at the AI Chicks on all social media platforms. And what else, Lana?
And don't forget to grab the merch.
All right, you guys take care. Bye.
Listen to the AI Chicks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Video episodes are available on Patreon. And check out our socials at the AI Chicks.